This is Pens Down. The pen is the tool of the journalist. On this show, the journalist become the newsmaker, not the reporter or the presenter, because we put them on the spot to understand what they go through in the line of duty. We call it journalism journeys. That is what we talk about on this program called Pens Down. Today, we are traveling to the very popular football country called Brazil, Rio de Janeiro, to be precise. And I've been joined by my colleague, a senior journalist all the way from Brazil, Vinícius Assis. You're welcome to PENSDOWN.
It's my pleasure.
He is a professional journalist with nearly 2 decades of experience, and he has some experience reporting from Africa. His full profile will be shown to you on the screen while we go through this conversation. Now, let me find out from you, how did you enter journalism? Was it a choice you made or something led you into it by accident?
Well, I was always thinking about my career, and when I was a teenager, and I was always looking for a way to, I had this mentality that through journalists, I was able to defend people, to fight for human rights, for right things. So I think it's just like, I was moving. I was born in a town in Minas Gerais, is another state here in Brazil. And then I moved to Rio de Janeiro, and I decided, okay, let's try the university. Let's go to university to study journalism. And it was like the best choice. I don't know if I chose Brazil, journalism, or journalism, just catched me. And first of all, sorry about my accent. I'm not mastered in English, but I'm sure we can communicate.
We can, and it's going very well. Thank you very much. I want to find out from you. You have reported in Brazil, you have reported in the Americas, you have reported in Africa. Which of them is the most challenging terrain? Which area would you say was very challenging doing your work in the line of duty?
Well, I would say Africa now. In 2018, I decided to go to South Africa, and then I contacted one Brazilian broadcast. It's a news cable TV channel, the main one in Brazil. And I said, look, I want to go to South Africa, and one thing upset me, because there was no one single Brazilian journalist in African country. So I decided to move to South Africa in 2018 to be a correspondent, to see, and they were exactly, this TV channel was exactly looking for a Brazilian in Africa, in an African country. So I would say it's challenging because it's my, I've been working in Africa for the last 5 years, since 2018, right? So it's more challenging because, when I moved to Africa, I would say we don't know a lot about Africa in Brazil. Unfortunately, 56% of Brazilian population are Black. And we are Afro-descendants. When we talk about international journalism, unfortunately, we think about US, and secondly, Europe. So I would say it's challenging for me as a freelance journalist, find spots in Brazil. I work I usually say I don't work for, I work with different Brazilian media houses. Yes. Because as a freelance, I would say, I can work on different topics. I can say no. I can decide, which kind of cover that I will spend time. And so it's challenging because I want to tell people that Africa is not only a synonym of poverty, disease, outbreaks, there are other things. It's also challenging because I think I like economy, for example. And it's challenging because sometimes Brazilian newsrooms, they don't look at Africa as a economic partner, you know what I mean? Brazil and Africa, especially, two agendas in common: agriculture and mines. And I've done like some stories about this. I would like to explore more. So from this side, I would say I'm in Rio de Janeiro now. I just came from South Africa. I lived in South Africa. South Africa was my base for 4 years, and then I moved to Ethiopia. Second base was Ethiopia. So now I'm thinking about my next destination in Africa. So the other from this side, from Brazilian side, I would say this is the challenge. So in Africa, I would say I have different challenges. First of all, visa. I face some visa issues. You know, the legislation sometimes is not so. The legislations are not so welcome to when we talk about Africa, when we talk about journalists. You know, when we talk about press freedom. But also, it's difficult because, you know, we have different realities. When we talk about, I usually say, when I talk about Africa to some Brazilians, some of them, they think about one small town full of Black people speaking the same language, everybody poor. I said, no, Africa, like Brazil, Africa is so diverse. It's a huge continent with more than 50 countries, totally different. Like Brazil, some people think about Brazil, they talk about Rio de Janeiro, or they talk about Amazon. I've never been to Amazon forest, by the way. And some people, when I talk about this, they are shocked. I say, yes, but Brazil is huge. It's not so easy to travel, you know, inside of Brazil. So I would say my challenge, like in Africa, are visa issue, no permits, paper. But also, I would say my daily routine, as I also work for TV, for example, I have two issues that always are in my mind: electricity and internet. As I'm you know, working as a mobile journalist, sometimes I have live streamings, or I have Zoom meetings, because I cover the whole continent, but I'm not always traveling, you know, around Africa. It's expensive. It's not so easy, you know, in terms of visa, you know. So I would say these are my main issues working with, you know, as a journalist in covering Africa at the moment.
Let's look at social media. How has social media contributed to your work as a journalist?
I would say I use, for example, some social medias to contact people. I'm not very engaged in terms of like, I'm not very, I don't spend a lot of time on my social media profiles, for example. I'm not focused on, you know, to get many followers, because my clients, the newsrooms, I work for media houses. So I was talking to someone, a diplomat from an African country, talking about some issues, and she asked me, yes, but they will analyze, to give you permit, they will analyze how many followers you have in your, for example, social media. I said, but I don't work for social media. One of my clients, for example, one of my clients in Brazil is a TV cable channel with about 60 million subscribers. So it's just like people pay for the content. So I work for professional media houses. So, but of course, social media, I can't ignore social media, but I'm not addicted to this. You know what I mean? I know I'm there. I use my social media to contact people. Some countries, they use their accounts, for example, to release statements. So social media are important from, you know, my job, of course, but personally, particularly, I'm not addicted to this. I don't spend a lot of time producing content. It's just like this is maybe is a challenge for me. It's an issue. Maybe to overcome this, but this is like how I use it. It's super useful. Social media can be a tool or can be a weapon. I use it as a tool.
Yes. I want to find out from you. Will you say journalism pays? Does it pay? Does it reward well? Journalism.
Yes, since 2005, this is my main job. I don't have another job. Some people nowadays, some people think that they are content producers, and people are using this as a hobby, you know, not a main job. I feel sorry for these people, but I can tell you, yes, journalism is my job, is my professional. I don't have another activity. So yes, and this is one thing that some people, some journalists, they have to think about, because sometimes we love what we do, and it's necessary, of course, but also we have bills to pay, you know, and so it's just like something we have. I look at me every day as a news agency, you know. So I have to put in account, you know, to put on the table. Okay, so these are my costs. Some people, you know, there was a time that everybody was I'm the only. If you find someone else, please tell me, because I think only one mobile journalist, Brazilian mobile journalist, working in an African country. But there was a time that many people were contacting me, some newsrooms, just asking me for, just inviting me for podcasts or something. I said, no, I have bills to pay. So I'm here, I spending money, I spending time, I got my visa. It's not easy. So I face many things, many situations that it's just like, it's my job. I'm looking for news. I'm going there. So I have my equipment. I spend time, I spend money to make my you know, to build my correspondent kit, for example.
Yes.
So people need to understand that, okay, you can get information for free, but I'm not sure if it's reliable or not. So I can guarantee to my audience that they are listening or reading news from a professional. I'm not, as I said, I'm not a political analyst. I'm not a commentator. I'm there. I'm on the field to give news, to looking for news. You know, listen, people, explore, like, you know, to learn. Of course, when I moved to Africa, I said I want to listen more and talk less, because as a foreigner, it's it's easier for me, maybe. You know, my country is better than an African country, so I can go there and teach something. I learn a lot, and as a journalist, I have the mission, I would say, to share this with my audience. So I'm there where many other people don't want or they cannot be. So yeah, this is a job. People need to understand nowadays. It's not just like, okay, I will open a social media a social media account, and then I'm a journalist. Sorry, just like it's not like this. It's not in this way. So I'm spending, you know, almost 20 years on this career. And yes, I would say it's, of course, it is my job. It's my main job, my main income.
Okay. In the line of duty as a journalist, there are a lot of dangers that you come across. What has been the greatest danger that you have faced in the line of duty?
Well, I was in Sudan when the war in Ethiopia, in Tigray, started in 2020. When I was in Khartoum, I was, you know, filming a queue of cars, and the car where I was in stopped. 3 soldiers came and they took me out of the car. They didn't allow me to take my bag, but while one of them was pulling my arm, so I opened my bag and took some documents. They took one of my phones, and they locked me in a room behind the gas station, and they were arguing. They were asking me questions in Arabic. And I was asking, like, please, English, no English. Blah, 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 blah. Yeah, I don't speak Arabic, but I was insisting, please, take a look on my documents, and one of them took my documents and my papers, and they thought, wow, there is a permit here issued by the Ministry of Communication, so it's a journalist, it's not a spy. They thought I wasn't a spy. So luckily they didn't break my phone, they didn't assault me, nothing happened. But was, I would say, more dangerous situation in this, we have our, here in Brazil, especially in Rio de Janeiro, we have our challenges as well in terms of security, right? There are some, when police operations, for example, when they go to the areas where there are drug dealers, sometimes it's always a very dangerous cover. But I would say this situation in Sudan was I would say, more tense situation. Despite Sudan is one of my favorite African countries, Sudanese are hospitable, so it's just like, unfortunately, the situation nowadays in Sudan is not the best. But yes, it was a very tense situation. And, when we work with the videos or photos, taking photos of, buildings, like public buildings. So sometimes it's challenging. It's very challenging.
Let's look at your reporting in various countries, from Brazil to America to countries in Africa. Has there been a time that anybody has approached you with a bribe that, okay, this story you are doing is about us. When it comes out, it is going to damage us. So take this one and then drop the story. Have you had such an experience?
No. The only one situation when someone asked me for bribe was when I was in Congo, DRC.
Okay.
I landed in Rwanda. I took a bus. So I was going on my way to Goma. So I was there to interview Dr. Mukwege, the Peace Nobel Prize winner in 2018. So I had everything. It was super complicated to get visa, many things. But at the embassy in Pretoria, they didn't tell me that a part of the visa, I had to get a media accreditation, media permit.
Okay.
So I had to pay. So they were like, it's a journalist. Of course, I told them I'm a journalist. I'm here to do this. I was thinking that, wow, I came here to interview Dr. Mukwege. He's a hero of your country, No, but he and the president was not very close.
Okay.
So I slept one night in Rwanda and I contacted some people from MONUSCO, some Brazilians, Brazilian army there, and they helped me. So we didn't pay, they allowed me to cross the border and then apply for, I was waiting, I paid $250 but for the government, to the government, not for I didn't pay the bribe.
Okay.
So I don't deal very well with this situation, to be honest. So initially, I would say if someone asked me for a bribe, I would say I will publish the story, of course. But I didn't face this situation.
Okay. You have done almost 20 years in journalism. If you are to come back again to this world, will you still choose journalism as a profession?
Yes. I usually say I'm a journalist, almost as a mission. I think it's one of the most necessary job in the world. Some people nowadays, people are not understanding very well the difference between information and opinion. So some people go to social media, they say, I think this, I think that. It's not responsible, right? So many times I reported about people, for example, during the pandemic, going to social media, just say Corona, that saying that it doesn't exist, blah, blah, blah. It's not something, it's not responsible. So there is a difference, and it needs to be very clear. There is a difference between opinion and information. There is a difference between journalism and marketing, propaganda. People have to understand this. So yes, if I had the chance, I'm not like, I didn't regret, I don't regret about my job, my career, and I'm very proud of my curriculum. And it's just like, I didn't do anything that I say I'm ashamed of this. I would repeat, I would say yes, I would choose journalism again.
What are your reporting interests? Which areas are normally your focus areas whenever you are reporting?
When we talk about, the good soccer players are that one, they can play in all the positions, right?
Yes.
So I would say I've met some journalists in African countries, especially youngers, and they say, I'm a human rights specialized journalist. So I'm specialized in conflict zones. What about you? A journalist. I'm not an expert.
Okay.
So when I was studying, I was a student, and I listened from a journalist. A journalist, it's not someone that, I know everything about everything. I know,
yes.
I'm an expert of a topic or something. A journalist is not a Wikipedia, but we have to go to knock at the correct door to get the correct information, accurate information. So this is what I do as a journalist. So as I told you, I love to talk about economy, for example, but of course, we have to talk about human rights violation. We have to talk about, report about political events. I can talk about economy, I can talk about culture, I can talk about different topics. Working as a freelance journalist, as I usually say, I can say no. I avoid, for example, so I don't follow one specific topic.
Okay.
So I avoid as much as I can, as much as possible, to talk about Africa as one thing. In Western world, we talk a lot about Africa as one thing, one single thing. Yes. I avoid. If I tell you I'd never done this, I'm lying. So it's not true. I already reported, but I avoid because we are talking about. If you tell me, let's talk about Brazil. Let me tell you one thing. I was in Johannesburg and someone playing. It was a party and there was they were teaching samba and they start playing Latin music. I said, but this is not samba. Yes, Latin music. I said, no, man, samba is different. Latin music is Latin music. So it's like Africa. Some people talk Latin America. I've never been to Uruguay. Brazil has not so many things in common to other Latin countries. So it's the same in when we talk about Africa. So I avoid this kind of story. So working freelance, I can say no, and I can select the topics I want to work, right?
Okay.
So I don't follow one single topic. What I reported many, I've done some stories, for example. I'm not an expert about this, but I spend time following this topic is the drug trafficking between South America and Africa.
Okay.
That is very important. It's concerning. So this is, I would say, it's my main focus.
Okay.
Recently, like in the last month, I reported about this, but I don't follow one specific topic.
I want to find out, why did you choose Africa in 2018? Why Africa? What was the reason you decided to come down here and then start talking about African countries, moving from one country to the other? What brought the interests?
Because there were no Brazilians in Africa. Brazilian journalists, right?
Okay.
If you go to the US, you see many journalists there. If you go to European countries, you find Brazilian journalists there. But why? we learned since, you know, since we were like we were students in our student life, we learn about Africa, you know, talking about slavery.
Yes.
It's not right. And some people, you know, I told many people, look, I saw more luxury cars in Johannesburg and Cape Town than in Sao Paulo and Rio de Janeiro. And some people thought it's true. So I want to tell these people that, look, like some people think in Brazil, we are here just like, you know, living at the Amazon forest. Some people think that when they think about Africa, and they just think, okay, lions everywhere, you know, animals, people suffering with disease. It's not true. I select, I would say, Africa. First of all, as I told you, as an opportunity. There were no journalists there, so I can sell easily my stories to the newsrooms, but also as an Afro-descendant, it's like, okay, we know everything about, you know, different wars and conflicts in history, you know, British history, French history, but we don't know very well, you know, many things that are very important in Africa, and it's totally linked to Brazil. We don't know things about, we don't know who, now I know, of course, but I had no idea about who was Ginga Queen from Angola, for example. You know, it's interesting. When I meet Angolans, when I meet Mozambicans, they know everything about Brazil. They follow Brazilian news. They follow Brazilian artists. But, you know, when we talk to Brazilians, I can tell you most of my friends, they have no idea about the name of the presidents of Angola and Mozambique, for example, because I'm talking about Lusophone countries.
Yes.
So, yes, also, I was like, you know, was not just one opportunity. You know, as an Afro-descendant, I said, like, we have to talk more about Africa. So I cannot tell, some people say, in Brazil, they don't talk about Africa. Well, I'm surviving, you know, I buy my bread every day, publishing stories about Africa. Of course, I think we have to talk more about Africa. It's about representation, you know. So this is what something that like encourage me to go to Africa. Like, okay, it's a mission. It's not just an opportunity. It's also a mission.
Okay. Almost 20 years. What would you say are your golden memories, the best times in your professional career?
I would say in the last 5 years, my experiences. I've been to about 10 African countries.
Okay.
You know, I learned a lot because when I used to work, I worked in Brazil, especially when I worked for TVs. I had teams working with me. Right?
Okay.
I had my man, I had the guy to drive the car. And usually in Africa, I work as a mobile journalist. So I do everything. You know, I'm my producer, sometimes my cameraman, sometimes my editor, sometimes you know, I also the reporter. So I can try different, I can do everything. So it's just my great memories, I would say, yes, it's like are the recent memories in this I would say it's a great adventure. It's a Africa. It's a great a big school. You know what I mean? It's like I learn every day, not just about journalism. I learn about myself. I learn about, you know, people, and it's just it's incredible. I've been to different countries. I've faced many different situations, and it's just something that is just yes, it's just well, it's not a love story, okay? Because usually my relationship with Africa is a balance between anger and love. Sometimes not so easy, as I told you, I was about to go to different countries, and so Rwanda, for example. Despite I've met some people, I like some Rwandans, but Rwanda, I would say, was my worst experience in Africa. I spent 1 month in Rwanda. I paid $100 for a media accreditation, for example, when the government didn't give me the media accreditation until today. And was tense situation, being followed by spies. It's just something that it's sometimes it's stressful. But yes, I like this part of the continent. So nowadays, for the second semester, I'm about I have to go to South Africa to cover BRICS Summit in August. But for the second semester, I want to explore Western Africa. So let's see which government will open the door for me.
You are traveling across countries that have different languages. First of all, how many languages do you speak, which professionally can help in your work? And secondly, do you sometimes engage the services of translators to be able to understand the language of the people you deal with?
This is very interesting because, I speak Portuguese, English, and Spanish.
Okay.
I would say I have to go to Western Africa to study English, to study French. Okay. I have to improve French. So I think if I'm living in a Francophone country, I will be able to learn easier, right? Like quicker, like faster.
Yeah.
But of course, when I go to a country, the first thing, no matter the country, I like to learn at least like how to greet people, how to say sorry, how to say please. These, I would say, keywords that are very important. So when I've been to Botswana, for example, Dumela, Dumelama, Dumelara. And when you greet people, Molo, Njani, I try to learn at least one local language. It's easier to open a door. At least like wow, he's doing. I said, oh, sorry. It's just like I'm doing my best to communicate your language on your language. It's just I can't learn all the. For example, in Ethiopia, there are dozens of languages. Of course, there is Amharic. People speak a lot in Addis Ababa, but I cannot spend time learning. Many other languages that it won't be, I would say, sorry, it's not like I don't want to be rude, but it's not like useful, for me, because I'm not in the country forever, living in the country forever.
Yes.
I sometimes, yes, I use translator, especially when I was in Sudan.
Okay.
So we contacted a guy who was able to translate from Tigrian to English for us.
Some colleagues I have hosted on this show, PENSDOWN, some of them have said that journalists should be licensed. Will you support any proposal for the licensing of journalists?
What do you mean license? Like a permit?
Yes, licensing. That means you are given the permit to practice. At a certain point, when it expires, you go and renew it before you can continue your practice, like the lawyers do, like the medical doctors do.
Well, I think we have to have a kind of I would say regulation, because as I told you, everybody nowadays, they want to open an account in a social media, then call themselves journalists. Sorry, it's not like this. No? And I'm a journalist, graduated in Brazil. We had not nowadays. You don't have to go to university to be a journalist. Okay. There's a discussion about this in Brazil as well. I have my permit in Brazil, so I can be a journalist. Some people, it's like upset me a lot when I contact an organization or a government, for example. The first question is, do you work for which media house? I said, I work for the journalists. I work for journalists. So this is what you have to ask me. So this is like my license. I'm affiliated to this association. These are my documents. I can tell you, I can show you where I publish my job, of course. Like but this, it doesn't like it doesn't define me. It's not like what will open the gate for me, the doors for me. You know what I mean? So it's just like it's not because I work for the big media house, so I am able to do this. And these, some African countries, they criticize the biggest, the big media house groups, for example, but they do whatever they want. So I was not allowed, for example, to cover the African Union Summit.
Okay.
My accreditation was, Ethiopian government that was, giving an accreditation for journalists, the local journalists. But the problem is, I can guarantee if I were working there, for a house, these international groups, many other doors were open for me. But this is also something that they have. It's a mentality that have to change. And yes, I think it's just like I defend a kind of regulation. Yes, to be a journalist, you have to have a kind of license or permit. I will tell you, like going to the university and studying journalism that helped me a lot. Despite my journey, almost 20 years, I've met some journalists without paper, without diploma, without papers from the university. Yes. They are more ethic. They are more journalists than some bosses that I had in my life. So, but yes, I think there is it's necessary a kind of permit. Yes.
How do you describe yourself? Are you a print journalist, a broadcast journalist, or a multimedia journalist? Do you report for television, radio, newspaper, online, all platforms, or there are favorites and specifics that you deal with?
As I told you, I'm this kind of soccer player. You can put me on different positions. We can do them. Yes, I would say I'm a multimedia journalist. And this is very important. Sometimes I work with editors, especially younger than me. And sometimes they've never been to the field. They were not reporters. So I can tell you, like, I'm not an expert. Maybe I'm not a super cameraman. I'm not a super reporter. I'm not super an editor, but I can do everything. Of course, journalism, especially when we talk about TV, journalism is synonym of a team, right? It's a job.
Yes.
But yes, I am able to do what others are also able to do. So I can do, I would say, yes, multimedia journalist is how I introduce myself.
You have done almost 20 years. How many more years do you want to go before you drop your pen?
I don't make plans for long terms anymore, especially after the pandemic. The pandemic gave us many lessons. One of them, we don't know anything about tomorrow. I love journalism and I want to be a journalist. I would love to retire as a journalist. But also, we never know. So as much as I can, I'm here on the road. And some people, when I was in Brazil, like, oh, are you back? Are you looking for a job or something? I said, man, we are open to proposals, but I'm just looking for, let's see what's, I'm going with the flow. So as much as I can, I would like to still go in to defend, to stand press freedom and working as a journalist.
So if you look at it, about how many more years do you want to practice? Is it 10 years, 20 years, 5 years? Since you say you are not going to do it for life.
It's difficult, huh? Yeah, let's see.
Right.
I don't know. Let's see.
Okay.
Maybe I would say I'm still young, but let's see, maybe 20 more years.
Okay. Okay. You were in Africa when COVID-19 came. How did it affect your work? Because there were restrictions on traveling, there were restrictions on contact with one another. How did you manage during that time in the heat of lockdowns and restrictions and everything?
Yeah, was tough. I was in South Africa. I was stuck in South Africa,
Mm,
and it was challenging, because we have to go to the field. We
yes,
have to talk to
yes.
people. This is, I
Mm,
would say, the real journalist, right?
mm,
But also, it's just I was thinking about my safety, right, and my health.
yes,
It
yeah.
was challenging. Was in South Africa, but we learn about. Uh, I would say two words describe very well my daily routine.
Mm,
Enforce and improvise. So we had to make plans. So many people we learn, for example, how to change our houses into
mm.
studios, for example. We start. I was in South Africa. South Africa did very well in terms of communication. So
Mm,
they created WhatsApp groups. They were releasing, the release. They were organizing press media briefings online.
mm,
Was challenging, especially covering the whole continent. Not all the continents were like, even I was talking to some people from WHO, and
mm,
they said like sometimes it's difficult to get numbers,
mm,
data from some countries. Was challenging, but yes, we survived. Especially, I would say the biggest challenge was the fake news. I don't like this expression, by the way, because it's
mm.
fake. It's not news. I would
That's right.
missing. I prefer misinformation.
Mm,
Misinformation was one of the biggest challenge in during the pandemic.
mm. Let's look at your work in Africa. Have you reported in the United States before? Have you done field work there before?
No, no, no. I've been there, but not working.
Okay. So let's look at your work in Africa and in Brazil. Which of the environments supports the work of journalists very easily? Which of the environments? Is it in Africa? If it is in Africa, which of the countries would you say it is easier for a journalist to operate as compared to Brazil?
To work as a journalist.
Yes.
Well, according to my experience, I would say South Africa. I
Okay.
would say I've never been to Kenya.
Okay.
These two countries are the main hubs of the, when we talk about correspondence, right?
Yes.
So um, it's something like, I would say I've never been to Kenya, but South Africa is one country, but I don't want to spend more time in South Africa. I love South Africa. I have
Mm,
friends. I was happy there,
mm,
but it's convenient. It's
mm,
one version of Africa, but
mm,
I don't want to be comfortable. I don't want to be in a comfort zone,
mm,
right? So it's always each country, every country has have one or more issues. But
mm,
I would say yes, South Africa, according to my experience, where I
mm.
was, me too. South Africa is, I would say, the easiest country in Africa to work as a journalist.
Tell us about the experience in Brazil. Is it
Well,
much
here,
easier than what you have in even South Africa?
for me, here is easier. You know what I mean? First of all, we have a transparency law. So
Okay.
it's easier when I have to get information, for example, and I apply, I
Mm,
ask for this information. First of all, we have this law.
mm,
Second, I'm Brazilian,
mm,
right? So I would say for me it's easier, but I don't have I had a very short experience working as a freelance journalist in Brazil. I
okay.
said Yes. So, always there are pros and cons.
Okay.
But I would say Brazil because I'm a Brazilian. So I know the legislation, I know my rights, I know how to, where to go. And yes, but I don't think I think Brazil is easier.
Mm.
I would say Brazil is easier.
In Africa, there are some very highly trained journalists, professional journalists that from time to time you hear he has left the field, he's now into public relations or corporate communications. In Brazil, do you have a similar thing happening? The movement of qualified professionals from journalism into public relations. And what do you think is causing this kind of development?
Well, yes, we have this, I would say, movement as well.
Mm,
Sometimes people, journalism is not easier. It's easy,
mm,
right? It's not so easy
yes.
to work and sometimes people just like, I know good. I have friends. They are
Mm,
very good reporters. For example,
mm,
they are mothers and they had children. They say, look, and our routine, it's super tough. It's not something
yes.
easy, especially for me. I'm traveling a lot, so sometimes people just okay. I don't want this lifestyle for me anymore.
Mm,
So maybe they like public relations. It's just like
mm,
something they want to try something different, or sometimes it's because money. I would say, unfortunately, some media houses they are prioritizing youngers instead of pay more money to experienced journalists.
mm,
Uh, that is I feel so sorry for this because sometimes it's for the money and people just go and work for different for organizations, but it's just like they can bring this what everything they learn they bring this to another area to another experience.
mm.
uh, i I can't tell you I will never do it. I don't
Yeah.
know about tomorrow.
Mm,
Maybe tomorrow I say like I don't want this life anymore. I don't want to be a reporter, and then I have another opportunity. But yes, we are facing this in Brazil as well.
mm,
But the difference is in Brazil we
mm,
have more private media houses comparing to African countries.
mm.
Many people ask me, for example, what is the interest of Brazil in Africa? I said, what do you mean? In Brazil, like when they talk about the Brazilian journalists, like, I'm working for the government. No, first of all, I'm not a spy.
Mm,
Secondly, I'm a freelance journalist, an
mm,
independent journalist. So I don't work for the government because when you go to African countries, so
mm.
many countries, the main media is public media, right?
Yes, yes,
It's owned by the state. We
yes.
have this in Brazil as well, but the main media house in Brazil are private.
Okay.
So yes, we have this phenomenon in Brazil, this movement in Brazil as well, especially because but everything is becoming easier. As
Mm,
I told you, I work for TVs, for
mm,
professional TV, and I work alone. So of course, if I had my cameraman, audio assistant, someone to drive the car, I would say, okay, I'm more relaxed to think about my text, my questions. But it's time is different. So I
mm.
can do a live, for example, as here we are talking. I'm alone
Yes.
here at home. So with the phone, I have an app. If I have an internet connection, I have my mics, so I can do a live streaming. I don't need
Mm,
someone satellite space, blah blah blah. So things are changing, right?
mm,
I feel sorry. Honestly, I feel sorry when someone go to a public relation office, for example, looking for another opportunity. There are
mm,
people who want this. There are people who like it. But when, okay, if I say I don't have a job as a journalist, so I want to move my career. So I
mm,
feel sorry, especially when we talk about, ages.
mm,
Unfortunately, people like are being excluded by excluded just because they are becoming experienced. And it would
mm,
be, the correct is okay. It's just the opposite. let's absorb more, that let's listen more these journalists, you know, that's I'm more expert now than 20 years ago. But I know now that, you know, the space, it's not so large for me now. If I want to go to media house.
Do you intend to remain a freelance journalist till you retire, or you are hoping to become a staff reporter, that is an employee reporter again one day?
You know, it's not my goal. I was talking to someone, it's a Brazilian who was also working as a freelance, and she was telling me, I am looking for a contract. I said, well, good luck. If someone wants, okay, we are open to discuss proposals, but you know, we can discuss possibilities, but it's not what I want, what I look for, right? It's just like, as I told you, I can say no. So if I'm working for one media house, if they tell me like, oh, we don't want to talk about this, and I think this topic is important, I say, okay, sorry. So I'm able to knock another door. I said, I have a good story. You want to listen to me? So I like this dynamic. You know, I don't have a routine. So my routine is just like something, okay, every day looking for news, looking for contacts, calling some people, some clients. So I like this lifestyle. So of course we have to be responsible, especially financially, because I don't have a salary. So I have to balance, I have to be responsible, I have to, wow, you know, we are in the middle of the month and I have bills to pay. So let's work. So I like this dynamic. I don't know how long I will be able to have this, you know, I would say hectic lifestyle. But yes, so it's not something. If someone maybe offer me, you know, invite me to be part of a media house, a team again, I don't know. Maybe I can say well, maybe I can say no. Let's see. I'm going with the flow.
Thank you very much for this. I have really enjoyed the time with you on PENSDOWN. Thanks a lot for joining us. Vinícius Assis is a Brazilian journalist. He has, I hope I got your second name correct. Is it Assis or Assis?
Assis, yeah.
Assis.
Well, in English, right. Assis, but in Portuguese, it's Assis.
Okay. Thank you very much. I'm very grateful for your time. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot. This has been PENSDOWN. On this show, we talk about journalism journeys. We connect with journalists from any part of the world, and we put to them some of the things they go through. They tell us, because you see, the principles of news reporting is that the journalist does not put their own experience in their stories. This is the only platform that gives them the opportunity to be able to tell us everything they go through, their experiences, the good times, the bad times, the high moments, the breaking point, and sometimes the moments of depression that they go through. We are grateful for your time. Thanks a lot for joining us on PENSDOWN. We'll be back next time with another edition, and we'll have another colleague join us so we talk their journalism journeys. Bye for now.